Voices fade, now nothing will come in your way. 'Cause you are a ray of sunshine, everybody wants your sunlight. And you are a magic light bulb, everybody wants your brightness. Dark days will come and go, but you're still burning in the cold.
Beaming across the counties of Essequibo, Demerara, and Berbice, this is Kaicho Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Kaicho Radio, the radio with a difference.
It is 13 hours 34 in Guyana, and you're listening to Kaicho Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. And it is time for COVID-19 and Elections Watch with senior journalist of Kaicho News, Leonard Gildarie, alongside Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon there, Kevin Smith, and it's good to be back again once again. I'm already jumping because Yoga said we're going to open the lines today, and we're going to open it earlier than what we've been doing that 1 hour. People have been calling us, telling us that they're not getting through because so many persons have been calling on the phone, and they want to air their grievances, give their opinions, and so on. So we are going to change things up a bit within the next couple of days. We are in crunch time now. We're in that big region, region 4, District 4, for the recount. It's day 30 of the recount. It is day 93 since we would have had elections, or in day 94. I've lost it a little. But I want to say good afternoon to everybody who's joining us here on Kaicho Radio 99.1, 99.5. Is it 99.5? I'm getting lost here, Yog. Yog, you could laugh, but guess what? I'm not doing only radio. I'm writing in the newspaper as well. So the people out there, they're gonna forgive me, and they're gonna forgive you too, because they know that we're trying our best. It's been more than 3 months now. We've been hitting this thing day in, day out. Why? Because we want to bring the news as is to Guyana without any flavor. Wherever the chips fall, let it will. In a very short while, we're going to have a coalition executive who's going to be on with us. I'm not going to say his name. 2 o'clock, and he has something to say, and I believe there's going to be some fireworks there. So at 2 o'clock, we're going to do that. But in the meantime, there's some major developments. Today, the recount at the Artichon Convention Center on the East Coast there, those folks there that are doing the recount, they've gone into those boxes, those controversial boxes, in which it's alleged that the votes were raised by Mr. Mingno, the returning officer for Region 4. And so they are examining that, and that is supposed to, if the trend is to be kept, what we would have seen, everything that has been coming out so far is indicating that the numbers in Region 4 has been raised by 60, 70, maybe more than 100 in some cases. And so the East Coast is where everybody's paying attention to, and that's where they're going to head. However, there's a major development. We would have been discussing, Dr. Yog Mahadeo and myself and others coming on to this program here. Would there be adherence? Would there be compliance with regards to the results of the recount that is ongoing right now? Last evening, the coalition would have said that the recount results, that it's not going to be credible at this point in time based on the figures that we had yesterday. The PPP is leading 13,000. We're going to talk about the significance of those figures with Dr. Yog Mahadeo in a very short while. But what is interesting for me, what is striking, is that the coalition is already saying, they've been saying that for a little while, raising concerns about the various things that would have been coming up in the recount, including migrant voters, people who were supposed to be overseas and voted, and of course they say that people voted too. And so they're saying that recount, the results are not credible. We're going to talk about that. We also want to talk about something that is very, very important. We know that many persons across Guyana, they're very concerned about the children who were set to write exams, not only the National Grade 6 exam, Yog, but also the CSEC as well as the CAPE. We would have seen over the last couple of days the Ministry of Education would have come out and they said that, look, they have received the timetable, and therefore very early in July 2nd and 3rd there's going to be the NGSA, which is the grade 6 exams. Of course, yesterday we would have seen the Amerindian People's Association raising deep worry over the readiness of our students in the hinterlands, and that is worrying too. They're saying that because some of these people would be staying in dorms and they would be coming out of their communities to stay over there, many of them went back home. That's one. Two, the ministry would have been saying that they would have sent information out with regards to the curriculum and so on. Some of these students, or many of the students, would not have been receiving it. So we want to discuss that. Well, let me go straight into it. A good day to everybody across this country, this beautiful country of ours. Today, hold the faith, keep the faith. It is going to be all right. We have to be very positive on it. We have to force our leaders to comply, to do what is right for this country, what is good for this country. So let me get straight into Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Welcome, my brother, once again. It's another day on the grind, but it's the people's day. It is their say. Welcome, Yog. Your turn.
Thank you, thank you. And yes, indeed, it is crunch time. There is no turning back. As of this morning, just over 100,000 more votes would have had to be counted. Just over 300 more boxes, 325 boxes at the start of today that remains to be counted. So in a matter of days, in a matter of 3-4 days, this recount is over and done with. You can already see the preponderance of blatant attempts to just again start to change the narrative. We are hearing all these talks about lack of credibility. We are hearing all these talks about dead people. We are hearing all these talks about migrant voters. Not one shred of proof has been put forward by those who are making these allegations. It is just allegations. We have heard allegations of ballots flying in the air from Linden to Georgetown. We have heard allegations of every single ballot box being compromised. And also, strangely, I think a week ago, one of the political parties would have made objections publicly. This is not within the Artisan Convention Center, would have made objections publicly about a box that only got opened today, or yesterday, sorry, only got opened yesterday. So some people seem to have forehand knowledge of what's within and what's without and stuff like that. All of that we want to discuss today, but critically, viewers, listeners, it is crunch time. D-Day is quickly approaching, and we are at a point of no turning back. Now, what we have to see and what we have to look at is how mature are we as a people to say, let us move on? How mature are we as a people to accept the results? And Leonard, Mr. Granger, President Granger was, I think, 2 weeks ago over at the aquatic center that the APNU+AFC seems to have commandeered for their election purposes. But he was over there and he said openly, publicly, whatever is the declaration of the chairman of GCOM, he is ready to accept. He was questioned. He was questioned as to what about the opinion of Basil Williams et al. And Mr. Granger responded, I am speaking on behalf of the government. I am the authority here. So it seems like there is a phrase called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. It seems like that APNU+AFC is once again back at the stage where the Ulita Moore case was. That is, they are not in synchrony, they cannot synchronize their positions with that of the leader of the list, with that of Mr. Granger, who is presently the president of this country. And that worries me, because if the followers are acting without the leader's consent or assent, then is it a case of the tail wagging the dog, so to speak? No pun intended anywhere. Is it a case of Mr. Granger being positioned, unknown to him, being pushed into a corner? And this would be most unfortunate. It is time like this, Leonard, that I, Yog Mahadeo, would want to see Mr. Granger step out and speak out, and speak openly to the public, to the Guyanese people, about everything that's going on. Let us know what he's prepared to do in 4 to 7 days' time. We cannot wait for then. This government has kept us in the dark since 2018. They have tried every single thing you could think of to stay in power. It may be that they thought that the law, their interpretation of the law, so I'm not arguing with that. They thought their interpretation of the law gave them that right, and that is something we can discuss. But at the end of the day, at every instance, Leonard, after matters have jumped literally out of the frying pan, then Mr. David Granger awakens himself out of slumber, and he comes and say, I will do this. But to his credit, he has always said he is going to go with whatever the GCOM chairman declares. So I don't think all the barks and the mews and the howls of anybody from any side of the political divide is going to matter as much as Mr. Granger standing up to his own commitment.
Absolutely there, yeah, Yog Mahadeo, and let's get right into it. I want to let us head into the reopening of schools. And the Guyana Teachers Union would have registered their objections for the dates of the grade 6 exam, the CSEC, and the CAPE. And they're saying they're questioning the readiness of the students. So they're going to have a meeting and they're going to come out with a statement. But they issued a statement yesterday expressing the concerns over the readiness of the students. The school was closed in March, and so many students would not have been able to access because of the way that the Ministry of Education was sending it out, the curriculum and other coursework and other work that would have been coming from the teachers. And so while that is happening, the Amerindian People's Association, there are thousands of students, they say, that who are living in the hinterlands that are not going to be ready for the exams. So that's a developing situation. We know that COVID-19 is upon us. This is something we have to pay attention. Would it benefit the country as a whole to have these students write the exams and they're not ready? Why would we want to do that? So that's a question that's before the table. Many students are raising the concerns. What we could also tell you, Yog, and tell the people of Guyana that I have received a number of texts this morning and calls which are indicating that some of the schools are in a major mess, meaning they have to be opened, fumigated, maybe sanitized before this is before any opening of school. So even if that being the case, yesterday that order which has been gazetted by the Ministry of Education is making it very clear. Let's say, for example, you were in the grade 6 class. You could only take probably half of the class to have classes with them before the exams are in early July. So which part of the class do you choose? And do you put them for the afternoon? So you have to balance it. And I think these are some of the challenges the teachers are going to be faced with. But the bigger picture here, the bigger problem that they have is the number of students, thousands, who would not have been having access to internet, one, having access to newspaper, that's two, where some of the work would have been, and three, the learning channel, and so some areas just don't have it. So how are you going to have those kids be ready to write exams? Big issue. Do you recommend that we go ahead with this, or should we put a halt on this right now and let us think about it a little more?
Well, Leonard, look, CXC, CSEC, CAPE, and so forth, these exams are not only structured for Guyana. It is an indictment on Guyanese that we are not at par with students across the region. It is an indictment on our government and governance structures that we could not have paid heed to the realities. Leonard, if our child has to write CSEC, we cannot let a year of our child go by. The child will not have an opportunity to catch up for a year lost in his life. We all know how important time is. Well, most of us know how important time is. But, I would say CXC has not made this decision in a vacuum. They consulted with persons, they consulted with local officials within the health system. They made a decision taking consideration of all the countries in the region. So the fact that exams will be written was a foregone decision a little while back. Whether the education ministry has now woken up from their slumber to say, well, we need to attend to the children, it is a crying shame. The children deserve better. Look, for weeks now, credit to them, University of Guyana has started online classes, I think, if I'm not, yes, I'm seeing it in front of me. University of Guyana has started online classes. And, the Ministry of Education has been quite, absent from the cause of the students and pupils in this country. All right, all of that is behind us. I do not think, and I do not subscribe to the notion of pushing back these exams, because if you are to ask for the pushing back of these exams, it means Guyana will have to have a special exam because the rest of the region is going ahead. So that's one. Two, pushing back exams is one thing, but then what about the children's lives? What about their time? That's two. The third thing, Leonard, is it is not late. Enough effort can be made by those in authority to get their acts together and to get the students looked after. We have seen, and you and I discussed this yesterday, has there been any consideration for the children who are ill? Has there been any arrangement? If my child has asthma or has a condition that is worsened by wearing of a mask and breathing in your own carbon dioxide, what happens? I mean, it's all well and good to throw a blanket over it and say, this is how it shall be. But we have to consider all the variables and make decision that shows a consideration of the variables. So I do not subscribe to the notion that exams should be pushed away. I rather subscribe to a more concerted effort to get the children ready for exams.
And that is something that I would have to agree with. But while that's happening quickly on the COVID front and on the education front, there's a big news that would have made it into corner of the newspaper today. And that is UG in the US and other stakeholders are seeking international accreditation for oil and gas courses. And that is at UG, and very important while we're paying attention. I think our people need to wake up and smell the coffee. We're very rich people. Well, the country is, and we're pumping gas. We have lots of oil there. I think it was pointed out the other night by one of our very good guests that we in the top 25 of oil producing country around the world when there's about 100 oil producing country. Very, very hard-hitting facts. And we now move into the US UG and other authorities, including Vincent Adams of the EPA, there's the head of EPA, would have had a conference call to see how could we put these accreditation or how could we have the engineering courses at the University of Guyana to be accredited and recognized internationally, because if we need anything right now we have to import those skills and so on. Big news. And then there's also the fact no more deaths. We have to pay attention also to this morning I was called I bring these things up as they come up because we'd have to have a discussion. And then somebody called in and says, while you guys are paying attention, there's something happened in the Skeleton Hospital. We don't have any kind of equipment working there. We can't even have any dentistry services being offered there. The doctor that's working there allegedly is operating from his home when he's supposed to be operating in the hospital. You want to do extraction, you go to his home. Said no scanning machine working there. So it's a big problem. So these are other things that is going to happen that people are really worried about while the country is so focused on COVID-19. Some people are moving forward doing stuff, and we're not paying attention to these little things. But Yog, over to you. I want to ask you specifically to address this issue here of 13,000 lead and the collation results. Do you believe that, let's say this thing finished within the next 4 days, the recount that is, should we, the people of Guyana, prepare ourselves for the worst case scenario that the coalition would not accept the results?
Not accepting the results and what you do about it is probably two different things. No loser in Guyana's history has ever accepted that they lost. From 1992 come back. Before that, all the elections were rigged, of course. But 1992 coming forward, all the elections had the loser had taken or filed elections petition, and it's a matter of the courts. Section 163 of the Constitution, Section 3 of the elections credibility part of the Section 104. Chapter 104. So we'll get into all of that later. But Leonard, as you and I agreed, every caller on this program, we are open to receive your comments and to listen to your concerns. It doesn't matter, your politics doesn't matter, neither does anybody's race or religion matter to this program. So since everybody's comments matter, you can send us your WhatsApp questions if you want. You can call in with your concerns and comments if you want. So Leonard, I just want to address one of the comment from one of our viewers, that is Dorothy. Madam Dorothy has said and has misquoted President Granger. Madam Dorothy, I am going to read to you quote from Mr. Granger. Mr. Granger said as follows: as President of Guyana and leader of the government, it is my policy that any declaration coming from the chairman of GCOM will be accepted by the government of Guyana. I speak for the government of Guyana, unquote. That is what the gentleman who is the president of this country has said. He did not qualify the result. He did not qualify the elections. In fact, it is the same Mr. Granger on March 3rd, March 2nd, that is on record saying that these elections, he was happy with them, he's on board with them, and he has totally endorsed them. So I want to get those things right, because Leonard, quite quickly we kind of forget all of these things and we just want to throw some allegations onto things, and the allegations suddenly become reality. In some people's minds, indeed, ballots took wings and flew from one region to another. How they get to that conclusion, I don't know, but that is so. So, Leonard, the facts of everything matter, the law matters, and we must have the direct quotations from persons.
Absolutely, Yog. And so we'll have to pay attention to that. Many persons want to know. The issue came up, and we should have a discussion. Who would have missed room 592 with Mr. Lennox Schumann, and of course Timothy Jonas of ANOG and the LJB party, respectively. So that would have been interesting, because one of the questions that was posed: what happens if the Madam Chair does not cast the vote? And what Timothy Jonas said, that is not something that could be contemplated. Maybe you want to throw some light onto that.
Yeah, based on the laws that we would have been subscribing to, laws of Guyana, and mind you, the president, the opposition leader, Madam Chair, they all subscribe and took an oath under these laws. Under these laws, the chairman has one function, and that is to hold elections, to declare the winner of these elections, and to move on. Thereafter, the courts will make a decision. Look, let's take a step back, Leonard. When Mingo did his fantasy dance of numbers, the first fantasy dance of numbers, when Mingo did that, what did the Chronicle front page say? The Chronicle front page declared APNU+AFC as having won these elections. The chairman said not a word. Instead, who did the parties go to? Not to the chairman, they went to the courts. When Mr. Granger and Mr. Jagdeo agreed for a recount, who did Yulita Moore go to? Not to the chairman, they went to the court. Now, if you have a problem, who do you go to? Not to the chairman, you have to go to the courts. Consistently, the courts has that exclusivity on deciding these election matters, especially as it relates to an elections petition. All of those things we can discuss. To conclude on this point, it is not perceived in any way that the chairman can do anything else other than to declare these elections. And President Granger reminded her of this on May the 17th. Reminded her, you declare, I will accept. Full stop.
If she doesn't declare, because if you look at the warden of the order, Yog, I understand with this, but strange things have happened. And people are asking, if there's no declaration, what happens to the commission?
If there is no declaration, then it means the Madam Chairman did not do or would not have done her job that she took an oath to do. She would then be, you know, the laughing stock, the shame of the world. We all know that Madam Claudette Singh is very sensitive to what people think of her. We all know she's very sensitive. She has a good reputation behind her. She is the person that called that election previously the way she saw it, without fear or favor. But Leonard, you know, there are certain things that you cannot, I mean, yes, I hear what you're saying. Suppose she doesn't declare. At this stage, a week to go or 2 weeks to go before that declaration, I would not like to contemplate on an impossibility. Here is why. If it's in Guyana, if somebody tells you it is snowing at Diamond, will you believe? You would say that as an impossibility and you cannot consider it. Similarly, let us liken that example to what the Madam Chair can or cannot do. In this case, the law is very clear. She has to run an election and she has to advise the authorities. She has to advise, in this case, the chancellor. She doesn't have to come out and face the press, you know. She doesn't have to come out and face you and say Mr. Granger has won these elections. She has to send a declaration to the chancellor, who will then advise the parties to prepare for swearing in. At least that's how I understand it.
Absolutely. So, Yog, in a very short while, we're going to try to get on to Mr. Leonard Craig. Mr. Leonard Craig is a very outspoken man. He's also an executive of the Alliance for Change, a part of the coalition, and so we're hoping to get him because he has his own say. And of course, we've been inviting everybody to come on the show, regardless which political side. We don't hold any brief with anybody because this is a non-political show in terms of anybody that we back in. Of course, bring them on and we're going to chat with you. We're going to throw that other side of the story out there because that's what we do. In a very short while after that, we want to get straight into the phone calls because we want to, you know, Yog, what we've been seeing here over the last couple of days with regards to our people, there's some very, very good calls, mature calls, people who are willing to have conversation. And yesterday was a clear example of that. We have people this morning, I was just checking the WhatsApp, there are people from even as far as Latam trying to get on to us here because they're saying, you know, we're listening, we want to raise some issues. So we want to, I think, coming into the new week in the next couple of days, we should expand the program a little. Talk less, let the people talk. I think
And
it's gonna people need to air the grievances.
correct. Exactly. And talking about people airing their concerns, there is something else, two things I wish to mention very quickly. Leonard, look, every time you raise something, like I've seen one person, some Mr. Adams, he said, in response to Sir Ron Saunders' comment, he said, who cares? Let the Commonwealth expel us. If Brexit can happen, then why should we bother if we get expelled? Don't mess us up. This is not the 1940s. And I responded to Mr. Adams by saying, well, if you don't care about what other people think of you, if you don't care about what the rest of the region thinks, if you don't care if you're expelled from OAS, and you don't care about any of these foreigners, why do we have Exxon drilling for a while? Why we didn't go and drill ourselves? I mean, it's an extraneous argument that one can throw in, but sometimes we need to appreciate that Guyana cannot stand alone as a country. We live in a world where the countries help each other, they look out for each other, and of course we depend on each other.
Absolutely, and there's a big thing that was pointed out by Sir Ron Sanders and even the other international guests that we would have had. As we're speaking now, we're trying to get some other leaders within the Caribbean onto our program 592. Well, let me tell you clear up. I think people don't understand when they're saying let the international community bring it on. They don't understand what we're dealing with. So you have oil, you have bauxite, you have gold. When you mine it, let's say you mine the gold and you mine the bauxite, what are you going to do with it? Where are you going to sell it to? When you put it there, or you're able to get out of the country, how are you going to get the money back? Because you're on sanctions. So there's a lot of other things that we're not even thinking of. We cannot be in isolation. Small world, maybe in the 1940s it would have been different now. We have signed on. Yes, go ahead.
And on the other side too, Leonard, there are some bigger things at play. So for example, on the 30th of June, there will be the commencement of the hearing for the border issue we have with Venezuela at the International Court of Justice. So why do we need the International Court of Justice then? We need all of these people to adjudicate and to help us manage matters of relations with countries and economics and finance and everything else. So that's another big thing that we cannot ignore. These elections have taken our focus away from everything else. We have seen an example with what's happened to the examinations for our children. Because we are so focused in elections, that slipped by, and now we are in a problem with that. Now we have this case coming up. Yes, one could say we have the lawyers, but the lawyers should have been prepping our political leaders, and we should have had statements being made. We should all be educated. This is not something that only the lawyers must do. This is something that the entire country must be educated of and for, so that we can all have the same belief and fight passionately for it. By now I would have expected Dave Martin's song to be replaying in the air.
Yes.
We would have been hyping up our nationalism, our sense of pride, not to blade of grass. Well, guess what? We're so focused in elections, and that court case is going to happen in a couple of weeks.
Man, and we have Leonard Craig, but let me tell you this. We have some beautiful singers here. Poonam Singh, I think it's Jackie Jacks. Is it Jackie Jacks?
That's right.
Beautiful.
Jackie has done well, yeah.
No, you hear that song, Guyana?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, look, I really started listening to it because every day the drumming it into my head here. But guess what? It's a beautiful song, and really I said, they should make that international song. Because it is pulsating, it tugs at the heartstring, it tugs at the patriotism. Well, enough of that. Let's get straight into Mr. Leonard Craig. How are you doing, sir? You hearing us? Well, in the meantime, while we are trying to get on to Mr. Leonard Craig there, I think he's on screen, but I think he has his mic muted. As soon as you hear us,
I can hear you clearly.
Oh, you can hear us. Very good, sir. So it's day 30. It's day 30 of the National Recount. What has happened? And you were at the convention center this morning.
I did not spend too much time at the convention center today because I had some other engagement. And then from those engagements, I came straight here. So I do not have a an overview except for some snippets and reports that were received.
So, Mr. Leonard Craig is the coalition. He's a representative of the coalition. I think you are still an executive of the Alliance for Change. Am I correct, sir?
Deputy
Yes.
General Secretary.
Thank you very
Assistant
much.
General Secretary.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
He's a big honcho. I think there's a word. Yog.
Those are your words, Leonard.
So you're not big? I'm just kidding you there. But let's get straight into it. Sir, last evening, the coalition was issued a statement which they're saying that the recount results are not credible. 3 months ago, different words we have accepted. We thought that it went pretty well, elections day. What has happened and what are we seeing here and what are we likely to see next week?
So let me just put your question in perspective first. Now, we have not said we will not accept these results, as I've heard earlier from your co-host. By the way, good afternoon, Mr. Mahadeo. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Leno.
So we have not said that we will not accept these results. We are committed to accepting any declaration made by GCOM. And we believe that the declaration by GCOM is binding on all parties. And that is where we are to this day.
Okay.
So
Leno, we being, are you speaking on behalf of Leno, on behalf of AFC, on behalf of the coalition?
All right, let me say this, that is my understanding of the coalition's position. We, from time to time, we meet depending on developments. Maybe something could happen, major thing could happen today or tomorrow. And we can say, okay, based on these major findings and outcome from the last 2 days, this pill is too bitter to swallow. We then cannot, because we don't know what would happen. The situation is fluid. But as of now, my understanding of coalition's position is that we will accept any declaration made by GCOM. And I hope that answers your question clearly.
Okay. And further clarification then, if we got about, as of this morning, was just about 100,000 more votes to go. So at this stage, given what you just said, because you clearly said that if anything were to happen in more recent times, as you get down to D-Day, it may or may not change this position. With just 100,000 votes to go then, what's the likelihood of there being a change of your now position?
If everything goes as it has been for the last counting we are at now, for the last 25 plus 4, I think this is what, day 28. We don't see any problem in accepting GCOM's declaration, but we are saying that, for example, at one of the counting centers, we would have seen people literally ambush the center, misbehave, and things like that. And if things like that were to occur again, we would have to reassess. But I'm saying, all things being equal, as we say in economics, ceteris paribus, I don't see us not accepting a declaration by GCOM.
Okay, but you mentioned something very important, Eleanor. You mentioned that if this forget what was the word you used, that happened before, if that were to reoccur, it may change the paradigm. In other words, what you are saying is that you expect, or the coalition expects, that regardless of how the next 3 days go, it must stay quietly and accept whatever comes out or whatever happens at the Recount Center. Am I right or wrong?
Mr. Mahadeo, I think I've answered that clearly, and I cannot directly answer that question to say regardless or whatever or anything like that. All I'm saying, all things being equal, if things continue the way they have gone, I don't foresee us not accepting a declaration made by GCOM. That is all I would say on that matter.
And Mr. Craig, just a little clarification. When you say acceptance, does that mean that the coalition, let's assume that the results shows that the coalition has lost. Would that mean a conceding by the coalition?
Let me put it this way, Leonard. We believe that whatever declaration is made by GCOM is binding upon all parties.
Okay, got you. Can't be clearer said, and thank you for that. Now, is there a likelihood in your mind, Leonard, that APNU+AFC may be requesting the chairman to not make a declaration and to declare these elections lack of credibility and whatever is the adjective here?
That is not outside of the realm of possibilities, Yog. Given all these, what I would call discrepancies, irregularities, and in some cases outright fraud.
Fraud by whom? Fraud by whom?
Is not outside of the realm of impossibility.
Fraud by whom? If you're making an accusation of fraud.
At this stage, we can make a calculated conjecture and make an accusation of fraud directly at the feet of the People's Progressive Party. And
if you don't mind expanding, fraud being perpetrated where? Within GCOM then? Because GCOM ran these elections. So PPP would have defrauded or have gotten within the walls of GCOM to create an election that is fraught with fraud?
Those are your words, but I would not
correct me.
I would not quite put it over the way you have, except to say that together as the PPP used its machinery to basically infiltrate and to what I call to breach the loopholes that exist in the system and exploit it for their benefit.
Give me an example. Give me an example.
Okay, for example, we have ballot box turning up in these recounts with the seals of the ballot box completely missing. So let me explain what happened with the seals. Now the ballot box is packed at GCOM headquarters, and 4 or 5 seals go on it. The center where you can insert the ballot and the 4 corners. So 5 seals. Then when it gets to the place of poll in the morning before you start voting, all the documents are removed from the box, and to remove them, you have to break those 5 seals. But it is required that the seals are kept so that you can have a tracking of the activities of the ballot box and the integrity of those ballots. Then it is resealed. So this is a second set of seals. It is resealed for the day's activity, because when you throw your ballot into a box, you throw your ballot into a sealed box. So 5 new seals are placed, in this case 4 seals, because the aperture, or the place where you put in your ballot, that one is left open. So in the second instance, there are 4 seals. And at the end of the day, to count those ballots, you got to break those 4 seals again. The presiding officer must do that. Then after that, he or she is complete. Then in this third instance, you put 5 seals, because this per time you have to seal the aperture because there's no more expectation that you go in through the aperture or any other part of the box. And then parties, individual parties, will then seal the box with their seals, party seals. What we have had in this recount are ballot boxes up to this morning. There's a ballot box that showed up with the envelope with the seals that tells you the history of that box, whether it was tampered with, whether it was exposed, or what the case might be. That ballot box turned up without seals. I want to ask you and the Guyanese public, would you be confident
Without with seals?
Result in that box?
Without with seals, number 1, number 2, or number 3, because you...
All missing, sir, all
so
missing.
So the box entering into the recount center was open then?
No, it had the last set of seals.
So they're not... Okay, so
last
hold
four
on.
set of seals.
Let me get some clarification. So you, number one, you said that the opening of the box, those broken seals has to be retained. Then you said that that those, in some cases, those are now missing. 2, you said that the box around the side is sealed. Number 3, the aperture is sealed. And number 4, the parties then attach their seals all around, right? So
yes.
All right. So of those 4, which one was missing in the box this morning?
The one this morning, the first set of seals that left GCOM was missing. The second set that was used on the day prior to opening in the morning were missing. Party seals were broken. And there were no, also in those boxes, in that particular box, sorry, there were no other information, no poll book or anything to give any idea of what happened. So normally what GCOM does is record the number of each seal because the ballot box, each ballot box has a trail, an accounting trail. So the seals have numbers on them. Mm-hmm. And every time you remove the seal, for example, on the day of polling, you would have to record those seals in the polling book. So sometimes I hear people say lost poll book. Yeah.
Go back to the same box this morning. How is it then that the PPP removed those seals? How did they get into the container, or how did they breach GCOM, or how and when and where in your party's mind?
The way you've asked the question, you're making the issue very simplistic. We can surmise that perhaps there was some form of collusion maybe between the presiding officer or the assistant presiding officer or something like that.
And your party agents too.
Some of these things are possible, but all I'm saying to you, Mr. Mahadeo, is that if a ballot box, regardless of who did the tampering or who did not do the tampering, if a ballot box arrives minus its history, and I was about to say just now that many persons have treated the issue of missing poll books as something light, but the poll book contains the history. You go to any medical practitioner, they want to have some idea of how you have lived your life, kind of family history you have, and that poll book tells the history of that ballot box because it contains the number of the seals and all of that. You don't have that. There is no way to compare. Somebody could remove the seals, put new ones, and just throw away the book.
I agree, right? So, okay, you're educating us here. What I don't get is how come you political parties are accusing each other? Because if you just threw your party agents under the bus, you said there is a possibility. Let me finish. You can correct me.
Let me say this. Throwing under the bus is a harsh term. All I'm saying, when you're dealing with human beings human beings in all strata of society can be compromised.
Okay, so your party agents were compromised to suit one other party. The police in the process were compromised to suit the party. The GCOM officer was compromised to suit that party. Why is this blame not going at GCOM? Why is it going to the party? It is GCOM that runs these elections. Let's turn it on the other foot. Leno, if you were in the opposition, as you were in the past, and these things were made out to you, what would you be saying?
That is a question I cannot answer for you. I can only answer the question with respect to the shoe I'm standing in, or with respect to the cap I'm wearing. And I don't want to wear the opposition's cap. I don't want to make or suggest what the opposition should or should not do.
I'm not asking you to think of the opposition. I'm saying if you were, as a human being, as a person who have been both in power and in opposition.
If, let me put it this way, if I have nothing to, if I did nothing, then I have nothing to fear. And the truth will be told. And I'm saying in this recount, the truth is being told through the observation reports. And the observation reports are there. And I'm sure you guys at Kaicho Radio can get all the observation reports and you can see. But I need to plug something very, very important that Mr. Mahadeo just mentioned. Dr. Mahadeo, I should say, sorry about that. Just mentioned. And it is with respect to the role of the police on election day. You have voted, I have voted, and we have seen that the Guyana Police Force is not an active participant in filtering voters, checking their IDs, determining if this voter is a legitimate voter. The police force is not a part of that. They are merely there as peace officers. And generally, they do not intervene unless called by the presiding officer. I have seen polling stations.
Let me offer a correction. Sorry, I cannot correct you. Let me offer a correction. I voted at Turkine. There was a policeman at the station. After I cast my ballot and I came out, I was with some international observers. After I cast my ballot, I came out. The policeman was there, very affable guy, by the way. And I then asked him a question. I said, can I go in to have a look again? And his answer was, no, you cannot. So I said, is there something that stops me from going in? And he quite rightly said, sir, you don't have an accreditation as an observer. You just came here as a voter. You went in, you voted once, and I cannot allow
that
you
is
to
quite
come back.
different from what I'm saying, you know.
No, but my point is he has a role to play in these elections.
No, he has a peacekeeping role, Mr. Mahadeo.
But that wasn't peacekeeping. That was keeping me out.
Let me say this thing, Mr. Mahadeo. He kept you out because you were there already. You had ink on your finger, whatever. He witnessed you walking in there. But I'm saying he will not check your ID. He will not filter you for the purposes of voting. And listen, let me just finish my point. I am saying we have to be careful what we advocate with respect to the role of the police.
I agree. But here is why I said that.
Easily descend into a police state.
No,
and
but here is
what we can do. Let me hold on. Let me finish. Any incumbent government can then use the police force, or in some cases, the police may be more lenient to the opposition. But any direction in which the police is more lenient can put a policeman at the gate and do voter suppression. Can simply just turn you back. If you want the police to do filtering. So let us be very, very careful what we advocate, Mr. Mahadeo. I heard you on one of your programs, either yesterday or the day before. you say the entire police force is complicit, and Mr. Commissioner of Police should answer why the police. That is not the role of.
Sir, no. Let me correct you, sir. I said it. No. I said it in context, and I want to present that same context to you right now. Miss Vola Lawrence, 2 days ago, said that in every single ballot box in this country, there are about 4 or 5 persons that voted twice, which means the police officer did.
That is an average number she gave.
Okay, but she did say that every ballot box in every station, which means the police there did not see somebody going twice.
Mr. Mahadeo, Dr. Mahadeo, when the reference to that would be when you average out the numbers, it would average out
no,
to
sir,
be
she didn't.
I
listened carefully to her speech.
I did not hear her complete.
I will send it to you.
Thing, but I am saying she may have misspoken.
Okay.
From what we know and the information we have, there are 827 ballot boxes we consider to be compromised. 827. And not every single one of them.
And I want to just ask you if we can go, because you did say that the observation, yes, we do have access to some of the observation reports and we have seen it. But Leno, aren't all of these observations you're making allegations? Why is your party turning it around to be proof, to be evidence?
Okay, let me put it this way. And I will do something for you that you might enjoy. There are two. I will categorize the allegation, the observations that are made in the counting station as 2 different types. One, which is semi-external to GCOM or quasi-external, and the second set would be internal to GCOM processes. The quasi-external set would be those relating to deaths and migration, because all the information does not reside within GCOM. All right? GCOM has a relationship with deaths and migration. They don't always use it, but I'm going to say that it's actually slightly outside of GCOM. Not that I'm conceding that it is outside, but I'm just saying, for argument's sake, let's put those aside. So let us not, for the rest of the show, calculate deaths and migration. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that is, I'm not conceding, but for argument's sake, let's assume deaths and migration does not make it at all on this list. Then our 827 ballot boxes will fall down to 511 up to 1 day ago. Will fall down to about 511, right? And these have nothing to do with deaths and migration. Further, for argument's sake again, let me just put a tag to these things and let me give them 2 tags. Simple problems and compound issues, simple irregularities and compound irregularities. Simple irregularity would be when there's a single irregularity. Let's say a poll book is missing. We call that a simple irregularity. But when a poll book is missing and certificates of employment are missing, let's refer to that as compound issue. And the number, the 300 and something that I removed from that 827 are simple ones that only contain either death alone, migration alone, or both death and migration. The other ones are compound. Death and migration may be inside of them, but these are other issues that can stand on their own. About 511 of them so far. 511 ballot boxes are contaminated. Other issues other than deaths and migration.
And it is your party's position that the combined or single, either the combined or a single party would have engineered this 511 boxes.
Okay, now here why we came up with that conclusion. One, we believe that if these things happen in a sporadic nature, one turn up in region 10, a single case turn up in region 6, and a single case in region 1, you can say, okay, these things are errors or things like that. But when you start to see a pattern, you know that there is an intellectual author behind that pattern. And you cannot dismiss. I can give you a list. I can give you numbers of ballot boxes right now about very egregious breach of the integrity of the ballot. And it has nothing to do with either death or migration.
Okay. So, Leno, with regards to these 511, as you said, it is something that you believe. What's your word? Some intelligent mind behind these. And I would be happy if you could send whatever details you have, because I would like to discuss this again. But for those 511 boxes, it means then, go back to our original discussion, the GCOM officer, your agent, the PPP's agent, because at this stage, we don't know who those, or I don't know, the public doesn't know who those people in those boxes voted for. We don't know whether those boxes went to APNU or they went to
when it comes to the integrity of the box, it no longer matters who those people voted for.
Good.
The thing is, those votes are in question, and again,
here's why it matters, Leonard. Here is why it matters, because the law does not allow somebody to benefit from their crime.
Exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
Thank you.
No. Okay. And those are the things that GCOM would have to take into consideration. But this is the point I'm making.
But why aren't you guys beating up GCOM? Why is it such a political fight rather than a GCOM issue? Listen, the reason
we wrote GCOM, and we have said to GCOM, these are irregularities, and give us an answer. And to this day, we have written more than 13 letters, and to this day, GCOM has not responded. The only one GCOM responded to is the one for a meeting.
Let's go back, because you said the
and
intelligence...
to say that we did not lay any blame at the feet of GCOM may not be entirely accurate.
No, but you opened the program by laying the blame totally at the feet of the PPPC.
But we are saying there is an intellectual author behind the pattern we have noticed, and we believe that the PPP orchestrated this.
Okay. Can I ask you a question, sir? Who was the intellectual author behind Mingo's declaration? Was it the PPP?
You will need to bring Mingo to your
no, but Leonard, you were you're a stakeholder in the election process, and Mingo's declaration affected you directly as a party in the process.
You are bringing me to a point where I probably need to deal with the Mingo declaration frontally. Now, this is what is happening. Mr. Mingo made a declaration on the 3rd, and we know the commotion that happened. And then there was a court matter, and then there was a subsequent declaration. I think it was on the 13th. To date, the declaration of the 13th remained unchallenged. Further,
no, sir. There's a contempt case that is still to be completed.
Yeah, and you're saying that's a challenge. The contempt case is a challenge.
Of course.
Okay. Okay.
Because Mr. Alexander was on this program saying that the court will have to decide about that.
Yes. Well, okay. I'd have no problem conceding that a contempt case is in a way a challenge, right? Okay. Well, let's move on. the thing is, they are persons who have recordings. You just hear a recording, a background recording, and then they have a video of a statement of poll, and they're saying that statement of poll is what Mr. Mingo is referring to, and these voices that are reading out these things are purported to be the assistants of Mr. Mingo. Now, there are some things that are bothering me concerning that. First, none of us have the spreadsheet that Mr. Mingo created, that he claimed to have created from the SOPs. None of us has that. So when you talk about Mingo's numbers, where do you get that from?
I can tell you where I get it from. Leno, let me tell you where.
Of that are those recordings.
Yeah,
right?
Leno, let me tell you where I get it from. There is a clear audio, the recordings, as you say.
Yeah,
and
who made those audios?
Everybody, we all did. Every citizen of this country has you guys in that room representing us.
Yeah,
in addition, Mingo's numbers as declared compared to the statements of recount are showing hundreds. And the day is coming when the actual figures of the recount for Region 4 will be in front of everybody's eye compared to what Mr. Mingo declared. That is something we can never hide from.
Yeah, but what you're doing now, you're asking me to exonerate or defend Mr. Mingo.
All right.
I can do neither of the two. I cannot convict or exonerate him.
Are you, as an APNU+AFC senior person, are you happy with Mr. Mingo's two declarations? And are you, if everything comes to a stop today, would Mr. Leno Craig be willing to take whatever Mr. Mingo did and say sacrosanct and I will live with it?
I would answer, though I'm not a lawyer, I'd answer the question legally. And we have said this several times, too numerous to mention. AFC itself had this issue 2 times at elections where we were given votes that are less than the SOPs in our possession. When we went to GCOM said, these are our figures, sorry, go to court and file a petition. Even though we had and we said, this is our SOPs. GCOM look at the SOP and say that may be true. But
that's which election?
Have now, please go to an election petition and present it to the judge. And so I would answer from that perspective. Legally, though a declaration may have clerical errors or arithmetic errors, what you do is go to an election petition. But
so Leonard, you are saying that the entire country should have not protested, should have not been amazed at Mingo's declaration, even though we were seeing the SOPs Stabroek News and Kaieteur News published, and we were comparing it with what Mingo was declaring. And you were saying we should have just been quiet, accept Mingo's figures, and go to court after that. Is that what you're saying, sir?
I cannot speak for people's reaction. What I'm saying to you is that the AFC has done that on at least 2 occasions. And
on those 2 occasions, you didn't have the creation of over 60, 70,000 votes coming from nowhere. Where, when you raised this objection in 2011, was it a matter of 50s and 60s and in boxing
Mr. Mahadeo, you are saying what you are imputing there right now is that 1 vote is less important than 60, even if it's for 1 vote.
Sir,
it is not
1
less
vote.
important.
No, sir. 1 vote in a percentage of a winner or loser is less than 60 or 60,000 votes. It is.
No, but it is not less important to the citizen who cast the ballot.
I never said it is less important. It's all about the math. It's all about the numbers, and Mingo inflated those figures, and you and your party have as yet to distance yourself from what Mr. Mingo do. And all when we ask, you guys dance around it. You either have to associate or disassociate because your party signed as a witness to Mingo's declaration.
Let me say this. I cannot speak for the president, but I can make a calculated conjecture that probably the president was not comfortable with the status quo, and unprompted, he initiated the CARICOM people to come here. Nobody pushed him, nobody prompted him. And if you could remember, on the first day when the CARICOM group came here, Mr. Jagdeo himself said that he don't want a recount because, and he gave some reasons, because even he was hesitant, so nobody pushed the president. And so I am just guessing out of my personal conjecture that the president was somewhat uncomfortable. And the president have already said that he speaks, right. You know, he ultimately speaks for the coalition. And so I don't know why we're harking back on Mr. Mingo when we are here now at the
Leno, look, are you saying that the history of the 1973 elections are not important to Guyana, or 1985, or 1964, or the atrocities that happened in 1964 and 1962?
You have gone to another extreme.
No, sir. Every instance of electioneering, or election fraud, if it's, for example, if your party has shown and will show or could show that the PPP was indeed involved in any bribing or in any way with controlling the election agents, I would be coming out totally against them, because that's not something I want to hand to my children in the future. But at the same time, we have to accept every act that you, the APNU, the PPP, and everybody did in these elections are equally important. We cannot and must never allow any of these things to go unquestioned or unchallenged. And to your point, Leno, I agree with you. I praise President Granger over and over, because every time he comes out, he speaks, and he speaks authoritatively. And I've been wondering, where is he presently? Because his party seems to be enjoying a moment of cognitive dissonance by spreading all kinds of things, that we are not going to accept these results and all of these things. I have seen an APNU+AFC flyer this morning that leaves me scratching my head. Where are we going? But I'm thanking you. You have been here. You have said quite assertively that it is your belief that you and your party's position is whatever Madam Claudia Singh declares will be accepted by all the stakeholders. And for that, that's the clarity we need, Leno, and I thank you for that.
And I thank you for that, gentlemen. Very interesting conversation, very mature conversation. Mr. Craig, we're running out of time. What do you say to the Guyanese people who would have probably lost some faith in our politicians?
Listen, politics around the world, Leonard, would usually come with a bag of contention. You check in the US, you check in Trinidad, you check everywhere. It's a contentious occupation. And some of the things that are involved, it is not easy to represent people at whatever level. It is not easy to represent the myriad views of people. And sometimes these things do happen. But the people of Guyana need to understand that it is part of a democratic process, and the alternative to democracy is it's a bitter cup that none of us would want to drink from. And so our democracy is still young. We're 50 something years old. Our democracy will grow. We may have to change our constitution one or two more times and so on. It's all part of the growth of a country, the growth of a society. And let us continue to participate. Let us continue to hold our politicians to account. And let us continue to grow Guyana. If I may also say that I agree with the sentiments expressed by Mr. Nandalal, I think it's 2 nights ago on one of his Facebook programs. If anything in these elections are tainted by fraud, then it without question, you cannot accede, you cannot go forward with something that is tainted. There are several people who believe that the declaration of the 3rd and the 13th were tainted. It has brought us to this point. And at this point, we are discovering several things that have tainted and have colored the results so far, and we just cannot ignore them. We can't just wish them away. That is not how we handle these things. We have to confront them, as Dr. Mahadeo is saying. We have to confront them. We may confront the Mingo issue differently as parties. We may confront these new discoveries of fraud differently as well. But at the end of the day, as a Guyanese people, we have to confront all these things. And we cannot confront one and not confront the other. All right? And we have to accept that these things have colored the results of these elections.
Thank you for that.
Leno, I have one last question for you. Is it within your party's consideration that one day, sooner or later, you're going to release your SOPs of the 2020 elections?
I cannot answer that question per se. Party decisions are collective decisions. And singularly, I have no such authority. But as far my personal view I can give you, I think that ship has sailed. We now have SORs, and we think
Leno, you're going back to that.
SORs.
My brother, we cannot allow any step in this process to go by without re-examining and re-litigating and see where we all as a people went wrong.
I would say this to you, it is for GCOM to release the SOPs. It is for GCOM. And again, I'll go back to the experience of the AFC.
Leno, all I'm asking is whether the AFC, as a responsible party, would consider releasing your SOPs to the people of this country, because we have had many callers coming here to say they voted for you. And that's all we want. Why are you hiding our property? We put you there. We're paying you.
No.
You guys are
your property is in the hands of GCOM. GCOM
and in your hands.
Posted.
You
can't post say one set outside of the thing, and they have the other set.
Leno, you can't say it's in the hands of GCOM on one hand, and then you're saying the fraud is not in the hands of GCOM on the other hand.
Let me say this. When in the history of this country, any political party has ever released a SOP until the 4th of March when the PPP released theirs? Never before.
I have in 2015 elections and 2011 elections, I was receiving them from AFC as it was available. I was getting them directly from you guys. So this is nothing strange.
That's
we
incredulous.
We have all together been speaking against former corruption of the former government. You have all called in 2015. Your executives have been out there demanding SOPs to be released from GCOM 2. Where is the chorus now? Anyway, we don't want to go back to that argument now.
Let me just leave one thing with you, because I conject that we're about to wrap up. But let me just leave one thing with you. This is a ballot box counted this morning. Ballot box 4577 from Ogle Community Center. Hear what the observation report says at number 3. Observations. It was observed that the following documents were not present in the box. The documents were, these are they: 1, tendered ballots, missing. 2, ordinary unused ballots, missing. Counterfoils, missing. Seals, used seals, missing. Now, Doc, what level of confidence would you have in the results coming out of that box?
Are the ballots in there, sir? The ballots that were seen, the ballots that would have been observed by your agent and the other agents in the polling. Let me finish. Your agent and everybody's agent were in that polling station. They saw every voter going to that place and they cast a vote and they put the ballot into the box. Were those in the box?
Let me say this. Be careful what you're advocating. If you are advocating that we can have a box torn up without seals, without counterfoils, the counterfoil
not without seals. Not without seals.
Counterfoil tells us how many ballots were used, and the unused ballots tells us how many, also corroborates how many ballots were used. If those two things are missing, how do you know the integrity of what are in the ballot, not are in the boxes? Now, listen to this, and let me just make this point in conclusion. We have to be careful what we are advocating. If you are saying to me that no matter what happened, what is missing that should be in the box for accounting purposes, let us just count the ballots that are in there. We have to be careful for future elections, because you're going to send a message to political parties that do what you have to do on election day. As long as the ballot ends up in the box, GCOM must count it.
Leonard,
no, that's the summation of what your argument is, Doc.
You're missing the point.
That is the summation of what your argument is, Doc.
No, sir. You're missing the point.
Be careful. That is all I'm saying. Be careful.
No. Sir, on the 3rd of March, you were happy to accept the ballots count as it were without going into those boxes.
All right, but let me answer.
Hold on, let me finish. At this stage, those allegations, those observations, they form part of educating this country and teaching GCOM a good lesson. How much more education is needed for its people at the various polling stations.
I am also saying that these observations color the results of those boxes from which they come. That is all I'm saying. And if you are advocating that we must accept...
I am not advocating. That is your interpretation. I am waiting for Madam Chairman to say, in my view, these observations have been made and it colored the results. Unless she say that, I am not in a position to say it. I am basing my educative relation as to what is coming at me. You were saying it colored it in you and your party's endgame. My thing is, in March 2nd, it didn't matter to you. No, that's a different matter.
That is misguided comment you just made. On the 2nd of March,
sir, every observation you raised.
From the day, the night of election, we had two operations room. I was partially in charge with other people of one of the operation rooms. And the operation room that I was in was to receive complaints from our agents. The agents, we give them a book to put all their complaints. Just hold on, let me just finish this quickly. And that is the room I helped to man on that night. And beginning the night of election, we started to see a long, long list of irregularities. But we know every election since 1992, there has been an election petition.
Yeah, go on.
Right? There has been an election petition. And so what we were doing, we were saying, look, we will accept a declaration by GCOM, and then we will continue to compile these reports from our agents in the field, and in case we have to take it to an election petition. And I am saying that many of these things, we knew these things since we started to know these things, I should say, since the third or the night of the second into the third into the fourth, and we continue.
But it didn't change the election in your view then.
So the thing is, we thought at that time the correct thing to do, accept whatever results proclaimed by GCOM, not by us, and then if there is need for an election petition, this compilation will then be further investigated and presented. It happened that we enter into a recount that has some auditing features to it, and some of these things. Doc, I am saying to you right now that from that operation room that I was a part of, there are so many other irregularities that are not fit to be presented now, and it will pop your eyes out if we were to have an election petition. There's so many more. We have, and I can call ballot box number, where the PO allowed people to ink their left finger. What do you think they're going out to do with the right finger when they finish?
But come on, Leonard, come on. No, sir. Leonard, no, sir. When I walk into a polling station, when I went to vote, the people there asked me to hold up my hands, hold up 10 fingers. They asked me to hold up my 10 fingers.
They didn't ask me.
Well, probably because the people know you. They don't know me.
I had the GCOM agent badge where I could visit several polling stations, and I have not seen that. I have not seen anybody asking anybody to hold up 10 fingers.
But Leno, you visited several polling stations. You didn't see any of the ghosts and any of the double people making duplicate votes?
Doc, come on.
No, it's a logical question. If there are allegations that the dead voted, it means that people voted multiple times.
I did receive complaints, and some of those complaints were documented.
Yeah, but to the magnitude that is being made out here?
Well, we only discover the magnitude when we decide to dig. When we start to dig, we find others.
But let's go back to what you said, though, because we got to close this section off, this segment off. Let's go back to what you said. And I'm going to allow you to correct me if I'm stating it incorrect. You took note of all these irregularities and everything else at the top immediately after March 2nd. But you were happy to receive and accept and swear in, notwithstanding those irregularities. But you are not happy now for somebody else to swear in with those same numbers. And the second part is that whether Mingo inflated the numbers or not, it really doesn't matter, because nobody should question where he got the numbers from, the inflated numbers, because it's behind us and it's gone.
You're saying a lot of things that I have not said, nor have intention.
Well, you can just say you disagree.
But what I'm saying, I will repeat, that we started to collect these, and they and they will take a while to come in and take a while to compile. But as the days unfold And I think partly, and again, I'm saying, let me be clear that I cannot speak for the president, but I guess that part of these reports, he would have received preliminary reports, early reports, and so on about these irregularities that gave him the confidence to say, here, look, let's go to a recount. And again, I'm saying he was not prompted. Nobody prompted the president to ask for a recount or to call in CARICOM and say, here, come here. We are seeing some things. Let's go to this thing. So I want to be clear again. Brother, I cannot speak for the president.
Leonard, my brother, I want to close by saying something to all of you politicians out there. Y'all are going to head back to the polls one day, and the electorate are going to vote again. It's been good to chat with you, my friend.
So, Mr. Craig, thank you very much, there, as senior official of the Alliance for Change and a representative of the coalition. Thank you very much, sir. You're always very willing to come on. And I want to say have a pleasant rest of the day. We are going to engage you back as the next few days develops and see what happens. And thank you very much for your forthrightness, sir.
Yeah, feel free.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. So we head to a break now. Yog, we take a 2 minutes break. When we come back, we head straight to the phone lines.
In the know with Kaito Radio. Join us daily, Monday to Friday at 13 hours 30 for COVID-19 and Elections Watch with senior journalist Leonard Gildarie and Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Join us as they keep you updated on the latest news on elections 2020 and the COVID-19. COVID-19 and Elections Watch, only on Kaito Radio. Kaito Radio, the radio with a difference.
Kaito Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaito Radio.
Yes, good afternoon. Welcome once again to this Elections and COVID-19 Watch. You're joining us here on Kaito Radio 99.1, 99.5. You could get us right across in Berbice on 99.5. Tune in also to Kaito Radio on Facebook. You could also get us on YouTube, Kaito Radio as well. So I want to say welcome back. Thank you. And your very interesting conversation there from Mr. Leonard Craig. He's stuck by his guns, and of course I think you would have asked him some very hard questions there. And he's saying that one thing that stuck out at me there is that they are willing, the coalition is sticking by its guns of accepting the results so far. What is it, some of the other things that you would be taking away from what Leonard Craig is saying that would register to you as being the stance of the coalition?
Well, a couple of things I think that is very important. One is that it is refreshing to hear that that they are willing to accept the declaration of GCOM. Two is that I don't think that there's a position as to the question as to whether the GCOM chair is going to make a decision or not. It is a position that the GCOM chair will make a declaration, and that the political parties are going to accept the declaration. Thirdly, Leno speaks to a degree of political maturity, and I would certainly wish him well in terms of his position on a number of things. And I would certainly hope that the persons who I see as rabble rousers in the political process can learn a little bit, because a couple of things. The whole aspect of Mingo's declaration and Valda's signature on that declaration, and the statement that the APNU+AFC party was collecting and collating all the irregularities from the moment the elections finished. Those are very interesting bits of information, but every step must matter. If we are to ever change and to ever have a election commission that this country can be proud of, there's a lot of things that needs to be changed. And those things are indeed something of critical importance before we go forward. I would love to see at the end of this stage, at the end of these elections, that there is an elections petition that will showcase to the Guyanese public and bring evidence and prove what were the discrepancies so that GCOM can get its act right. We cannot have this happen again, Leonard.
Absolutely, and we did promise our people that we would have opened the lines to call. The plan was to do it, but it was such a very important interview there with Leonard Craig. It's not often the coalition people has been very willing to come on. They're very busy people, and so of course we had the question we had to ask. People wanted to know. Let's head straight into the phone lines: 226-7453, 226-7453, or you could continue sending your messages, WhatsApp messages to 6222222. Your people want to know whether any one of the smaller parties has won a seat based on what the information we see so far. Maybe we're going to come back, but let's head to the ear. Yes, good afternoon. You're an ear caller.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, sir.
I hope you guys understand what you put us through for the past hour, because for the past hour we had a guy just skimping around questions, just skimping around. But I like and I appreciate what Mr. Yog said at the closing remarks, that sooner or later politicians will have to go back to an election. And I'm not going to speak anything on what transpired on this program, because it's kind of irrelevant to me with my understanding and what I see transpire from March 2nd to now. What I want to say is, there anyone in the AFC APNU faction who understand that they're sinking their ship to a level where it might take 100 years to be risen from? Can they see the level where they're going? Because the fact is that the 2015 election, the PPP was booted out, and the APNU and AFC was to gain office. Mm-hmm. Now, it is a fact, and it will come at the end of the recount, that the PPP has been re-elected, and the APNU AFC had been booted out. Now, one would have think PPP to regain office, they would have the understanding, and they would have to understand that they have to perform during this next 5 years, because 2025 chances are, if they do not perform, they would have to go again. So now, with this is what's playing out here, it simply means PPP could actually continue with, maybe corruption and so on, and they don't still have to fight so hard at 2025 to remain in power, because this was showing out here by the APNU. Nobody would want them go back, and then we're nowhere close to the government of this country. So what I'm seeing, the level and the way how this is looking on APNU AFC here, they cannot come back from this. What they do, the most sensible thing here now to do is to accept, move on, and start campaigning for the next election, rather than go through this whole charade and try to defend a lie. So politicians will have to go back to an election sooner or later, and they must understand this. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Interesting point. The fact is, the recount is ongoing. What we're looking at the various scenarios that is likely to play out. Very quickly, Yoga, somebody would have texted us and asked us if, based on the figures we would have seen from March the 2nd, those initial figures, whether the smaller parties would have won a seat and which one.
You mean that we would have seen through the recount, right? As yet, it is probably too early to do that. I've asked, I've had a little chat with Shaz. As you know, he has been Shaz Ali.
Yes.
He has been keeping tabs and showing up on his website, PCI. It would seem like they joined a list, according to Shaz, and all credit to Shaz Ali. It would seem like they joined a list, maybe getting a seat. So that is something new that is coming out of the recount, and they would have not gotten anything had we had the swearing in from Mr. Mingo's declaration.
Interesting thing. So we head straight to the phone lines again. Good afternoon, caller, you're on the air. Yes, good afternoon, caller, you're on the air. Good afternoon, caller. I think we lost that one. So, Yoga, very interesting times. We go straight on. We'll be on to the crunch time now, as we would have said not too long ago. The headlines in Kaichur News today. the main headline with current 13,000 vote lead by PPP. Granger Coalition says recount results not credible. Paying very close attention to that because it may be a indication of things to come. Let's hope not. We want this recount to make a declaration so this country could go ahead and move on with the things it has to do. But we would have seen what we would have seen. And there's a caller online.
Leonard, just as you bring on the caller, let me just say this, that remember that with the joint the list parties getting one seat, they will decide how they're splitting up that time served in the one seat. However, the PPP seems to be heading for an outright majority, given the projections. If we're to use the SOPs that are in our possession with the votes already recounted, we can see how it's going to go. I mean, those are clear, educated numbers that we can put at play here.
Well, let's see how it plays out. Caller, you on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Yog Mahadeo, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, and Gil.
Yeah, yes, good afternoon. Go
I
ahead,
see
sir.
when question brace this guy just now, like he don't know which corner to twist to, left, right, or center. There's only one thing left to say to you all is that the PPP break young G come gate, blow up the container and tamper with the boxes them. But I want him to know, you turn and twisted, the PPP already won the election. And they will have to try with that, wherever they want it to run. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And if you're now joining us, special edition here of the elections and COVID-19 watch on Kaicho Radio 99.1, 99.5. Our next call in the air. So, Yog, I know this evening is going to be pretty interesting. We have an editor of Kaicho News. He would have also been in the political scene, but he is somebody who has minced words, and of course he comes from a background of being very caustic to both sides of the equation here. That is the opposition as well as the coalition. And he's well known, Roel Johnson. That is going to be in room 592. What do we expect?
Well, we are going to expect some fireworks tonight as Roel Johnson takes the hot seat, because there are so many questions we have to ask him. But of course, interestingly, the reason why you and I have asked Roel to sit here is Roel has played a good role in supporting the AFC getting into power, and he also was employed by the APNU+AFC. He also was an employee of the APNU+AFC government. And so he would have sat within their ranks, and he would have spoken out. And, at the end of the day, he is now independent once again. He helped to create one of the new parties. And after the creation of the new party, he is now gone into media. And I think Roel will do very, very well in media. He has a knack for it. But it would be interesting to see how you would have moved from an anti-PPP stance to being outspoken against the APNU+AFC, because one of the things is that a lot of people, a lot of persons have lost their moral compass for the last 7 years. A lot of the current politicians have lost their moral compass. When I see some of these guys talking on radio and TV, I get worried. What about your integrity you had in 2013, 2014, as you were trying to impress everybody to vote for you? One last thing I'll say to the last caller and to all viewers and listeners. In my mind, sir, ladies and gentlemen, it's not the PPP wins, It's not APNU that loses, In my mind, it is the electorate that wins. And it is the electorate that will decide who will stay in power or not. We got to move beyond this PPP and PNC thing. We got to look at what's best for them. And I tell you, if PPP doesn't do well, if they're sworn in and they don't do well, we must all be ready as one people, one nation, know that our destiny lies in good governance, not in party loyalists. We got to move beyond this thing about loyalty to a party and be loyal to Guyana.
Thank you very much. You're a bunch of selfish people, let me say that. And so there's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir.
I do not say these words as meaning to laughing anybody. It's based by reasoning of looking at all that happened. That when you start along a particular road, there's only one destination. So when I say I told you so, I'm saying it again. But I would like to make this point. One, I stole the car. You know it was stolen. And I promised it to you, Mr. Gildarie. And you stand to bill you, but rather you never complained about I stolen the car. When I changed my mind and said I'm giving it to Mr. Yog, you call the Commissioner of Police. You cannot claim any moral ground there. You knew from the beginning that based upon what that fellow said, that there were irregularities. So stand up and say to me, one tells me that you accepted irregularities when it pleased you. So you have no moral ground there. And believe you me, I have no favor in liking the PPP to win this election. I am saying that as a former member of the AFC. Secondly, based upon all that everybody is saying about these exams that are to come, I haven't heard anybody mention anything about how these classrooms will be constructed, if masks will be provided for the children. I work as a security guard, and I cannot wear a mask on for 3-4 hours straight. I just got to put it on, go in my corner. I do not know how they expect children to do this. Now I'm hearing they're going to have classes for children leading up to the exam. So you have to be in a class with a mask because COVID-19 has gone nowhere. So I'm wondering what is the logic behind that, while I understand the children need to write the exam. And thirdly, everybody seems to forget that lots of these children's parents are out of work. Where are they getting money to get them to and fro? Because you can't use the normal minibus, so to speak, because 8 in a seat, 8 in a bus. How the children getting a snack? We haven't provided anything for the people of this nation yet other than talks and creating lists, and nothing has trickled down. What is the government doing as they call themselves the government? I am shocked and I'm surprised. And I must say again, tomorrow you will see the another spin. Thank you very much. And let's be commenting up here.
Thank you very much, Jay. Call some very pertinent points. Let me try you with the one with the education. I think the order yesterday would have spoken somewhat to food for the children, transportation in specific areas. I can't remember the top of my head. I'm going to try to put my hands on that order, and we see where it goes from there. There was some specifics when it came to how many children in a classroom. I think you could only take about 15 children in a classroom. So the question that arose is, which 15 do you take, especially for the grade 6 students that we're looking at? So I'm gonna try to put my hands on that order tomorrow so we could go through it. It's not very long, and we could go through it and make it very, very clear. Yog, over to you quickly before we go to the next caller.
The caller is right, and that's very, very logical that, you know, if on day 2 of the elections you knew that it was problematic, you basically accepted. And I want everybody to remember, I got a lot of beat up for this, Leonard. I think I'm trying to find it. It's so long ago. On March 14th or 15th, Yog Mahadeo wrote a letter to Mr. Granger, and I shared it on Facebook. And I said, sir, if you accept a stolen fruit, you know, I use the law and I show that if one accepts a stolen fruit, you are as culpable as the person who stole it. And you know, a lot of people beat me up for that letter that I wrote, and I shared it on social media, and it got thousands of shares. So you are right, sir. The last point the caller made is, it's really, really pertinent. And Leonard, you and I have been every day for the past week. We have been calling on the authorities, do something for the children. The children, my son cannot sit still for 2 minutes. How am I going to put him in a mask? You know, so children are different. Children, we must think. And you know, it's not hard. Look at your own children and you will see. How do you expect the children to wear masks all day? And the caller is right. But you're right too. We're going to share the details of the order. It caters for their seating arrangements. However, as I said, we still need to talk about kids who are sick. We still need to talk about any child who has to wear a mask covering their mouth and nose for 6 hours at a stretch, what it will do in long term to them, and the transportation of the child to and from school. All of those things are still up for discussion. And Leonard, I really feel, you know, we have been trying. I'd like to make a public appeal to the officials in the Ministry of Education to come here or come on room 592 and let's have an open discussion on it.
I'm working on that, and the caller did point out many parents are not working. Let's head to the phone lines quickly. Get a couple of calls in. Yes, good afternoon, caller, you on the air.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Yog.
Good afternoon, sir.
Leonard, right?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. You can also tell me if you enjoy the 1 hour of conversation just now. But when we really want to tell you, when you see somebody attack a lie, just really punish. You understand?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so you see when you're trying to attack a lie, you just punish bad, very you get what you want to come out of, because to tell the public one lie is a very bad and hard thing to do. That what we get to say, and thank you for the good work.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you very much, Zia. And so, very quickly, is there another call in line? So, Yog, we are going to be coming on to 7:30. Let me tell you what's going to happen in the next couple of days. It's going to be crunch time. With regards to the 1:30 show, we're going to try to open the lines a little more. We apologize for today, but it was very critical that we get Mr. Craig to address a couple of issues, burning questions that the people of Guyana they were asking over the last couple of weeks, and I think we tried to put it to him. Of course, he would have tried to answer it. So we are going to open the lines a little more and have the people.
Leonard,
yes, sir.
Let me just say this. I mean, we all have to realize that when Leonard Craig when he comes to speak, or an Anil Nandalal, or any one of them, when they come to speak, they have to balance between their personal opinion and speaking on and for and on behalf of a political party. And this is why many times, the reconciliation between the two might be sometimes challenging, because when they speak, they have to be conscious they're speaking on behalf of a political party, and therefore it doesn't flow as easy as one might flow if, like, here I'm flowing or you're flowing with our talk because we're speaking personally.
Yes, thank you very much. There's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller. Yes, good afternoon, caller. You on the air?
Hi, Mr. Gildarie and you.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon
to you. Good program. I have enjoyed. I couldn't get the entire conversation with Mr. Craig. Mr. Craig has sounded very promising in regards to being a politician and to elevate to a next level. Because what we have seen, we need proper politician. We need, and this I'm talking about on the PNC side. And I hope that after this whole election fiasco is finished, declaration and swearing in is done, Mr. Yog Mahadeo has opened up himself. And I hope that he continue along with you. And I don't want to hear that election is finished and Yog is gone. Even if this thing going to happen in the night, you both are doing an excellent job, and this is good for Guyana because you're being heard. I think most places in Guyana, I'm calling from the fields in the MMA scheme, a caller that would often call you, and I would like to see that you continue on what you're doing here. Election will be gone and finished. But you need to continue this, you need to encourage, and when people are going wrong, then you call them up, right? And I appreciate what you're doing an excellent job. In regards to the school being reopened for common entrance and so on, I am worried for the children and for what can happen. Because until now, I'm not seeing people are that really acting in this responsible way with COVID-19. You can still see 50% of the people around without masks. You can still see people acting in a carefree manner. And I think some of this is because the government, right, they are taken up with election. They are not paying the attention and putting the emphasis there. I hope election is over soon. I hope that we can get, the right government. And I agree with you. It's not about political parties, but we should be as Guyanese agree to disagree, because PNC can't, all the parties can't win. One will win, and the one that wins, and we should, as Guyanese, accept it. And the better one obviously is going to win when you show programs and policy. And definitely, after AFC didn't show that. And the PPP had won the election. Therefore, we have to accept and move on. PNC can come again. You get young Craig on the program just now. The others that they have, most of the other young people that they have, they are jokes. I don't want to call their names on your program, but they are jokes, right? You need people who is serious. And as we get closer to the declaration, I hope that all that Craig would have said there, he really mean it, and his party would have listened and put Guyana first and accept the declaration from Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear. And I want to say a big hello to the people of West Belize, and by extension to that, all Guyana, all our people in Guyana, and wherever you are joining us from overseas. Very quickly in wrapping up, Yoga, want to remind you that next week we're going to open the lines a little longer for the people to be able to call in. We want to hear them. We want to hear them on issues of education, COVID-19. We want to hear your views on the politics, what is happening down in your community. Let us hear from you. And so the lines are yours. We're going to do that. And also with room 592, Yog, I understand that that you are extending the hours as well to 1.5 hours. We've been asked to do so by the people. A lot of requests came in from the people. Tell us a little about that very quickly as we wrap up.
Yes, we know that there's a lot of discussion. Last night, for example, was extremely interesting from Leonard Schumann and Timothy Jonas, but we were constrained to our 1 hour because that's what we have had. But now we are negotiating for an extension to 90 minutes. I want to just say something pertaining back to elections. D-Day, the day of declaration, Declaration Day, is coming up very, very, very soon. Interestingly, to everybody, as of today, if not already, and if not today, as of tomorrow at the very least, all the workstations may now be engaged in Region 4 alone, because all the other regions would have completed. So it will speed up, and it's going to start hitting us very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask everybody, you are all educated. Everybody's educated in their own way. You can go to Starbuck News. You can go to Kaiser News Archives. You can have a look at those SOPs that are stored there, and you can calculate what's going to happen on D-Day. This is no magic. It's nothing that is beyond any one of us to do. So those numbers, and for those of you who don't want to do that, you can go to Shaz, go to the website that they have there, and you can certainly look at the numbers coming out. But tonight, it's Ruel Johnson.
Thank you very much, there, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, and myself, Leonard Gildarie. It's been a pleasure, as always, to be with you, to bring you that 1.5 hour of news with regards to elections 2020 and COVID-19. Have a pleasant rest of the day until 7:30, room 592.